unshare for me to share. All right. Cool. Wow, we'll get this up. Can you guys see the slideshow now?
Yep.
Yay. Okay, well, things are going right then. It's kind of ironic that the title of today's presentation is called Overwhelmed as a Safety Professional. There's help for you. Because the question I have is, have you ever felt overwhelmed? And I'm guessing the answer is yeah. My name is Joe Corpy. I'm a certified safety professional. I work in central Iowa, and I've done a lot of speaking for ASSP. This particular talk I actually did back at Safety 2019 before we had something called a pandemic that would terrify us and cause us to do all sorts of different things. But even then, so much going on. There were times where I felt like I was passing myself in the hallway. And today is an interesting example where I get a text message saying, "Hey, are you going to join us?" And I'm like, "Huh? Who is this?" Um, because have you ever had multiple email addresses and you say yes to someone and you put it on one email address and another email address, you just didn't tie the two things together? This happens. Why do we feel overwhelmed? Why do we feel so burdened? There's so many different things going on. Good news. There is a chance to get some immediate relief, and we're going to talk about that today. And we're also going to talk about some practical steps for success. I would say the first thing, though, is if somebody invites you to talk, make sure you get it on your main calendar. But anyhow, having good people around you can keep you out of trouble. When it comes to chaos, there's bad news and there's good news. Okay, so we'll start with the bad news. The bad news is you can't change the complexity of your daily life. You can't. You're really not in control. The only thing that you can control is you. You do have the power to choose how you're going to handle the different things that come up in your life. Okay, so the biggest question is, why is it that we feel overwhelmed? What's going on? Well, how many of you can identify with too much to do and too little time to do it in? I know I've had that happen to myself too many times. Too many different people making demands on your time, all with conflicting agendas, all with the same deadline, same day, same time, and they want it done now. The definition I came up with when I looked for overwhelmed was to cover or bury beneath a mass of something like floodwater, debris, or an avalanche, to submerge. That from dictionary.com. And I thought, boy, can I relate to that. Here's the definition that I like, though. Overwhelmed is when your brain is full. You've had enough. As Mama used to say, I've had enough. Your brain is full. You can't take any more. Why do we feel that way? Well, one of the things that's really important to remember is there's a difference between the chaos that we create and the chaos that was created externally. Okay. So self-inflicted chaos is something that we actually have control over. We can sometimes create self-inflicted chaos by trying to avoid having a crucial conversation. When someone at work is doing things and you need to talk to them about it, but you don't want to because you don't want to get into a conflict. So you don't talk about their bad habits or their poor work behaviors or their poor performance or their unrealistic expectations or their deadlines that are too tight. And because we don't talk about it, we have to deal with more than we actually can. Sometimes there's just too many choices, too many possibilities, analysis paralysis. We sit there going, I don't know. If any of you have a piling system instead of a filing system, then you can relate. You have a piece of paper and you're like, I'll do with this later. And you stick it over there, and next thing you know, it's piled this high. Columbia Research did an interesting study, Columbia University. And one of the things they discovered is they gave people salsas or something like that to choose from. One group only got 6 choices. One group got 24 choices. Guess which group couldn't make a good decision? Yeah, the 24 choice group. Too many choices. So too many choices can lead us to not being able to make a decision, and so we don't, and so we put it off, and that adds more stress. Sometimes we're overcommitted. Now, if you're overcommitted, if you're saying yes to too many things, it may be because, you need more backbone. Or it could be because you're a control freak. Do you have to be in charge of everything? I know I'm the past president for the Hawkeye chapter, and I've been the secretary before that. And one of the biggest problems I get into was I bought into that line, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I forgot some other people want to participate too. And so I kept trying to keep everything happening and make everything happen. And pretty soon everyone else was just sitting back coasting because Corpy had it. As a result, I found myself overcommitted instead of empowering other people to do tasks that needed to be done. Uh, Maybe you can identify with this one too. Procrastination. Was it the procrastinators April meeting has just been scheduled last month, using avoidance, going as long as possible before you do something. How many of you have been taking care of your emails after work hours? Right? Excuse me, allergies. How many of you like maybe college schoolwork last minute because you say your essays are always better than? I perform better under stress, you say. Well, that leads to being overwhelmed if you're not careful. One of the things you do have to watch out for, though, is your procrastination a coping mechanism or is it a control issue? Are you doing this on purpose? That's just something for you to think about. Here's something to watch out for. Patterns that lead to behavior that causes self-inflicted chaos. I got this from a website that was talking about psychology. They use the term HALT. I'm not a psychologist. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I've read a few things. HALT, HALT. Watch out for these 4 triggers. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. These are the triggers that get you in trouble if you're not careful for self-inflicted chaos. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. In those moments, worse yet, if you're hungry while you're angry and you're lonely and you're tired all at the same time, these are things that tend to cause us to try to find our comfort level and usually not take care of things that we're supposed to be taking care of, the things that don't act on us. An important concept to really understand when it talks about feeling overwhelmed, I call him Dr. Stephen Covey came up with this concept that I love from the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, there's all this stuff rolling around in your brain, but in the reality, all the stuff you're worrying about and thinking about is what we call your circle of concern. All the different things that are on your mind. Maybe it's Ukraine, maybe it's what's going on at work, maybe it's what's going on at home, the kids, the spouse, possibility of a future spouse, who knows? Inside that circle of concern, there is a much smaller circle, the circle of influence. These are the things you can actually do something about. No, maybe you have the ability to, but I know for sure for me, I can't change the outcome of Russia and Ukraine. I don't know anybody over there. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's outside of my circle of influence. I can't call up someone and ask them to do something to make it change. So I need to focus my thoughts and efforts on the things that I can influence and change, like taking time to talk to you. What are the things that I can influence? Now, Steve Covey was talking about these two, and when I was looking online, somebody threw in one tighter circle, and that's the circle of control. Circle of concern, all the things I'm thinking about and caring about and worrying about today. Circle of influence, the things that I can actually make some difference to. And in the dead center is the circle of control. There's only one thing that I can truly control in this life, and that is my behavior, my actions, my response. Now, if you are finding yourself completely overwhelmed, you are mind freaked out, and you're like, Joe, I can't deal with highfalutin platitudes. I need some immediate relief. I need some 911 help. Well, I got your back. Listen carefully. Here's how this works. The problem is your brain is full, right? You can probably relate to this. You're sitting there, your brain is just, and you can't even find a thought. It's like, King Kong with the plane circling around. You can't bat at one because there's just too many. Okay. The best illustration I can give is, when a computer is low on memory, you ever had this warning pop up on your screen? And you're like, oh, Computer's low on memory. That's what you're dealing with right now. See, if you say, if like my computer has 500 gigabytes, yeah, well, when you get to about 400 gigabytes, the computer starts acting weird because it doesn't have enough space left to have those random thoughts. This is what's going on in your brain right now. So, the solution is amazingly simple. Grab a sheet of paper. You can do this right now. Grab a sheet of paper, blank sheet of paper. Grab a pen, a pencil. If you're a danger to yourself, grab a crayon. Okay? Something you can write with. And right now, write down all the thoughts that are going through your brain. Just any random thought. Just start writing it down anywhere in the paper, random spots all over the place, all the different things you're thinking about. I'll give you a few seconds here. Just take a minute and barf your brain onto paper. Just write down all the thoughts you're thinking about. I'll give you a minute. Go. All right. Unchaining your brain is just as simple as writing down the things you're thinking about right now. Random thoughts that are coming across your mind. You just write it down, keywords, whatever. Now, here's the beauty. It's in print. It's in front of you. You don't have to think about it anymore. Okay? It's a beautiful thing. You write down everything that your thoughts, all the different thoughts are going through your head. Maybe it's something about home, maybe it's something about work, maybe it's something about your church or religious organization or your thing you're active in civics or whatever, ASSP. You write down all the things you're thinking about. It's there on paper now. You can't forget it. You don't have to use your random access memory to think about those things, okay? Now, take out the mental trash, the unwanted stuff that's cluttering your mind, because like garbage, it starts to stink if it sits around, especially like, as you guys know, garbage in Texas on a nice August day, it could walk itself to the can. In the same thing, you want to take out that unwanted stuff that's cluttering your mind, the stuff that's outside your circle of control, outside your circle of influence, and is not going to get you closer to your goals today. You need to be clear on two things. This is very important if you're going to get any traction going forward. Number one, what do I stand for? What is my mission? What is my purpose? Okay. Number two, what do I want? What is my desired outcome? What do I stand for? What's my mission? What's my purpose? Two, what do I want? What is my desired outcome? When you're clear on those two things, things start getting a lot better. One of the neatest books I've read, and it's just a short book by Spencer Johnson called The Present. It's kind of an allegorical story, but one of the things that the concepts that he brings out there is the best gift you can give yourself is the present. The present meaning to be present in the moment. So often we're living in the past or we're fearful of the future that we're not enjoying the present. I mean, think about the last 2 years we've spent, some people huddling at home because of COVID, other people going to work where very few people are showing up, and all the different stuff that was going on, being afraid of the future that could happen or the past that has happened, instead of being present in the moment, being fully present. The key to being fully present, according to Spencer Johnson, is to focus on what is right now. Okay, what is currently going on? Focus on what is right now. We're too good at picking out all the things that are bad and awful in this world. Not everything is bad and awful. You're still alive. Okay? You're still smart. You're still beautiful. I believe in you. So what is right now? If you're watching this, you're probably a safety professional. That's right. Um, Something has gone good today. Focus on what is right now. That will give you the energy to deal with all the different things, the challenges that are going to be coming up. Use that purpose then to respond to what is important right now. Focus on what is right now, focus on what is right now, and then use your purpose to respond to what is the most important thing to do right now. That's the gift of being fully present. Okay. Being present requires you to tune out distractions. Now, the other thing is you need to be able to learn from your mistakes. So when the past keeps trying to haunt you and tell you about all the bad, dumb things you did, yeah, you can't change that. You did it. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm my own best critic. And every now and then I'll remind myself of things I did that I should have done differently. And whenever that happens, you have to say to yourself, okay, yep, that definitely did happen. I was there, present, witness, you bet. Um, but what can I learn from that? Why is my brain reminding you of that mistake? It's not just to beat me up. It's so that I don't do that again in the future. So when your brain starts trying to rehash how things didn't turn out, okay, but next time this is what I'm going to do differently. Live in the present, the time right now. Learn from your past. And Spencer Johnson says, don't forget to plan for your future. Okay? But you have to start by living in the present. You learn from your past, plan forward to the future. One of the questions, this is where I get to source out my geeks here. Star Trek Enterprise. I'm going to give you two choices for who's going to be the helm of your ship. Okay? You've got your spaceship here. You can either have the empath or Captain Picard. Are you going to let your emotions or are you going to let logic be at your helm? Emotions are designed to help give you spice, flavor in life, things that make life fun. But emotions are a terrible pilot because that ship will be going all over the place and for no good reason. Logic, on the other hand, says, whoa, hold up just a minute. What are your facts? What makes you believe that what you believe is actually true? How do you know what you believe and what you're going to act on is the right choice? Logic will keep you out of those emotional shipwrecks, if you will. One of the ways you can do that, going off of what Covey says, is begin with the end in mind. What is your desired outcome from what you're about to do today? What will it take to get you there? Okay. One of the things I like, my background, I wasn't always a safety guy. I was actually, believe it or not, a radio broadcaster. I started out in radio up in Wisconsin and came down to Iowa. And one of the concepts we learned is something called back timing. At every radio station, all the modern ones at least, there probably is still an analog clock on the wall. And the reason is because you can visually see time moving then. And what we would always do is called back timing. So if I had to do something at 15 minutes after the hour, so at 12:15, and I needed to be ready by that time, I would start with my deadline, 12:15, and start working backwards. How long is it going to take me to do this? Okay. I identify how long it's going to take me to get this job done. Like for instance, I would say if it takes me 10 minutes to make my breakfast, 10 minutes to eat my breakfast, and 10 minutes to wash the dishes, that's 30 minutes total. If I have to be out the door at 6 o'clock, I better start prepping at 5:30, right? That's back timing. How long is it going to take to complete my task? And then I can determine my starting point. If you do that, you'll find yourself rushing a whole lot less and chasing yourself a whole lot less. Back timing is important, especially if you're like me and time is this weird relative concept you can't really understand. Like, oh, I got plenty of time. And my wife is always going, no, you don't. Putting first things first. Being a leader, not just a manager. Managers take the limited resources and try to do the best they can. They teach you how to climb up a wall on a ladder, but the leader is saying, that's the wrong wall. You may climb to the top, but that won't be a picture of success for us. Excuse me. Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People pointed out these 4 quadrants, Q1 through Q4. Q4 is your not urgent, not important. Q1 is your urgent and important. And how he defined urgent, by the way, urgent is things that act on you. Important are things that you have to take action on. If you're up here in Q1, that is high stress. Urgent, it's acting on you. It's got to get done. If you don't do it, it won't get done. And important, if you don't do it, you won't get your goals done. You need to minimize your time in quadrant 1. And the only way you can do that is if you focus on quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is the things that have to be done for you to reach your goals, but they won't act on you. You have to act on them. If you needed to learn German, let's say, you can't wait till the day before you get on the plane to fly to Germany to try to crash course German. Well, you'll pick up a few phrases, right? You might be able to say, I would like a hard-boiled egg or whatever, but you won't be able to have conversational German. The only way that's going to happen is if you take the time to study. You have to take the time. Urgent things down here in quadrant 3 act on you. Email, Twitter, all the different things that come up. Those are things that are urgent. If you focus on quadrant 2, the important stuff, the stuff that'll get you closer to your goals, the things that aren't urgent per se, they don't act on you, but you have to act on them, like exercise, taking time to meditate, taking time to focus, taking time to read standards and understand what's in them. The more time you spend in quadrant 2, the less time you spend in quadrant 1. And quadrant 4 needs to be ignored altogether. So let's look at some practical steps. What are some things that you can actually do immediately to reduce the amount of chaos in your life and get that control back? We did the 911 thing, the barf your brain thing, so that you can actually think a minute and focus. And by the way, barf your brain or unchain your brain if you want to be more sophisticated. It works great. Anytime that you just need to be able to think clearly, do it. Write down every random thought that's going across your brain that's on paper. You don't have to remember it anymore. It's there. You'll come back to it. Okay, you don't have to try to remember that. You don't have to hang on to it. Your brain can only handle so much at a time. But what are some practical steps you can take? Morning action energy. Oh my gosh, this is a big one. Start off the first 30 to 60 minutes of your day trying to improve your mind and your body as much as you can. If you can do that, it's amazing how much that'll change your day. Now, mind you, I don't always do all this stuff, right? All of us have things that come up. But at any time that you can do that, it makes a big difference because you get something called action energy. It's the force required to get something done. Momentum. You're getting the mo in your momentum, okay? What kills momentum? Cell phones. Social media, email, games, time wasters, blah, blah, blah. Don't pick up your cell phone first thing in the morning. Get an alarm clock that's not a cell phone. People pick up their phone before they even wake up, before they even start moving, and they just start pouring Shinola into their brain. That's why our brains are full. Before you leave the house, sit down and write out the most important task. What are the things that have to get done? You've probably heard the big rock example of the professor who had a big glass jar and put a bunch of big rocks in the glass jar, and he asked the class, is the jar full? And they're all like, yes. And then he put in some smaller size rocks and shook the jar. Is the glass full? Yeah. Then he took out some pebbles and put it in there and shook it, and they're like, is the glass full now? And they're like, maybe. Put in some sand and shook the jar. Is the glass full now? And they all roared, no. And he put in some water. Is the glass full now? And they're like, yeah. And he asked, what do you think the illustration is? And no matter how busy you are, you can always do more. And he said, no. If you don't put the big rocks in first, they'll never fit. Your big rocks are your most important things. What are the things you're going to get done today? Before you leave the house, make that decision. 2, 3 things tops. The big 3. What are the things you're absolutely going to get done today? Before you leave the house, identify it. What's going to happen today, and use your higher level thinking to plan how that's actually going to occur. One of the things, if you can get away with this, do it. Block out from 8 to 11 in your calendar and make that your MIT. You put that in there, it always looks official. It stands for most important task. Maybe you can't do it every day. Maybe you can just pick one day a week, but block out that time. Do you know why? Because according to the scientists and according to the researchers, according to Forbes.com, that time is your most productive time. You know what we do instead? We throw that into meetings and waste our day. The natural peak performance time for many people in America, at least, is between 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you focus on that time, no twaddle, no ESPN, no news headlines, no email, that's your prime time. Don't waste it on twaddle. Get right to business. Your natural lower brain activity time is between 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, according to the researchers talking about coping with shift work. So, what can you do during that time that'll help you? Use other people's energy. That's where you schedule your meetings and do a standing meeting. That means literally standing. It's if you fall asleep on your feet, it tends to cause physical injury. So most people out of self-preservation will stay awake that way. If you're using other people's energy, you can bounce off of them, especially if you find your neighborhood extrovert who nobody wants to be around because you can't get any work done. Do your meetings with that extrovert between 1 and 3. They will pick you up and perk you up. Schedule that email time. Don't waste time through the day checking your email. How much of your email actually means something? How much of it is just spam and stuff? You know what? Figure out what time you're going to check your email. According to the experts, this is one of the ways that you can get more time in your day. And you got to ignore FOMO. FOMO is a fear of missing out. Oh my gosh, there could be something really important. Okay, yeah, you know what? If you get people in the attitude that between this time and this time is what I'm staying on top of my email, they will know eventually that's how it works. Now, you may have some urgent emails that pop up, but resist the urge just to click up email just because you're looking for a diversion. And for the love of everything sacred, shut off the notifications. Especially Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, games. On your phone, go to notifications and only have the stuff on that's absolutely important. Oh, you mean like email, Joe? No, definitely not. Well, why not? Because think about all the email. We've already said this. That's spam and twaddle. If you're working away, whoa, there's nothing that shoots you out of the saddle faster than that notification sound. How long can you go before you have to look? So a distraction. I heard somebody explain this and I love it. A distraction is not just something that diverts your attention, it's a loss of mental traction. Here's an illustration. You're going along doing your primary task. La 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 la. Someone comes up. Boom! Here's a big old distraction. Hey Joe, do you know where the Anderson file is? What? You take care of that secondary task to help them, and you have to spend all this time getting back to where you were. If we straighten this out, you see how much time just got spent? And then you get back to your primary task. But the problem is, did you pick up where you left off? Or did you accidentally skip a step? Loss of mental traction is a big, big deal. As a matter of fact, it's led to a lot of our industrial accidents, if you really think about it. Because you'll ask somebody, what was going on? They say, oh, I just wasn't thinking. Well, no, come on. If you weren't thinking, there would have been drool coming out of the corner of your mouth. You were thinking, but what were you thinking about? What actually happened? Those distractions from notifications popping up, tweet, tweet, all those loss of mental tractions can be completely eliminated if you shut them off. Think about it. You can come back and look at them later. Excuse me. Another powerful thing you can do is schedule 15 minutes at the end of each day for an after-action review. An after-action review is where you ask yourself, what was supposed to happen today? Your big 2-3 things. What actually happened today? There's always going to be a bit of a delta. Why? What was the difference between what you intended to do and what you actually had happen? And then you ask yourself, what things went right? What should we sustain? The things that were really good, and we want to make sure we keep doing those. What things can we improve on for tomorrow? So you come up with what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, why is there a difference, what went right, what can we improve on? P.S. Things always go right, and there's always ways to improve. By taking the 15 minutes to capture that and write down any other lessons learned, you give yourself an amazing gift. If you can get disciplined enough to do that, the next day when you get to work, you could start by looking at your after action review. Makes a big deal. Here's another important thing, and I tell you what, this is something I struggle with. Set a hard stop. What time you leaving today? Make a commitment and honor it. You're leaving at 5 o'clock, back time it. Back time it so at 4:59, 60, 5 o'clock, you're done. The only way that's going to happen is if you stay ready so you can be ready. Determine what time you're going to leave. Make that a commitment, a deadline, and keep it. Go home. At the end of your workday, go home. All the way. When I say go home, what I mean is bring all of you back home. It's not work-life balance, it's work-life blend. And if home is literally at home because your work office is your home office, blah, 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 go home. What I mean is mentally unplug from the work and plug in. Be present for the people in your life who love you, the people in your life who need you. And I tell you what, it's easier said than done. And sometimes the only way you're going to know if you're doing that is by asking those around you who you share in your home, whether it's the cat or dog, or your spouse, or your kids, or your roommate. Am I present in the moment, or am I still at work? And they're like, I don't know where you are, but it ain't here. Boom. Go home. Have a relaxing evening. The world's going to keep going. If you want to see a place where there's a bunch of irreplaceable people, people the world couldn't live without, it's called the cemetery. Okay? You can relax in the evening. Get a good night's rest. 7, 8 hours of sleep. It's not impossible. One of the easiest ways to do that, by the way, is shut the cell phone off all the way. Don't play with your computer at night. Don't watch TV at night. Grab a book. Grab something that doesn't have a light shining in your face. Do things that allow your brain to slow down, to unwind. Meditation. Read a book. Gentle exercise. Listening to music you enjoy. Something without a screen, if at all possible. If your brain is racing, unchain the brain. Grab that sheet of paper, write down every thought you have in the morning. You can pick it up and look at it. All those thoughts will pop back, but probably without all the clutter. Unchain your brain if your mind is racing. And then study intentionally. There's many different things out there. As a matter of fact, there's no shortage of stuff that you can look at if you're intentional about it. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one that I highly recommend by Stephen Covey. I keep trying to make him a doctor in my brain. Stephen Covey. Mel Robbins, Change Your Mind, Change Yourself is a YouTube video you can watch with some great advice there. Funny sense of humor, some language a little, but anyways. Short story, The Present by Spencer Johnson. Print and audiobook. You know what? When I first read that, I was moving too fast. I was passing myself in the hallway. That's the reason this whole talk came about, was because I found myself completely overwhelmed with things that was going on, and I had to find a solution. My wife recommended the book. I got it an audiobook, paid for it. If you go through your library with like Overbridge or something like that, or Bridges or Libby, you might be able to listen to it for free. But I bought it on audiobook, and I don't regret it, because I've listened to it more than once, because it helped me refocus. One of the things that I'll never forget is Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Somebody asked him once, they said, why do kids like you? I mean, not to be mean, but you're kind of boring. Because he wasn't exciting. He was quiet. He was slow. He wasn't macho. He wasn't cool. Why do kids like you? And Mr. Rogers, in kind of his classic way, just kind of sat for a moment and thought, and he said, I suppose it's because I'm present in the moment. Kids like to talk to him because he listened. Think about how many people in your life wish that they had someone who would just sit down for a minute and listen. If you want evidence of the fact that we have a desperate need of that, look at the suicide rate over the last 2 years. Look at the drug abuse rate over the last 2 years. Gang, we got a big problem. The only way we can be healthy enough to help other people is if we take time to understand how we got where we are. The old joke in the airlines, put on your own air mask before you try to help the person next to you. You have to help yourself first. The only way that you're going to be any lasting good to the people around you as a safety professional is if you take time to help yourself. Study by reading some of those books. The Present, Change Your Mind, Change Yourself is a YouTube video you can watch. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's many more things you can do. The good news is there is help. The good news is most of the reason that we're overwhelmed is 100% self-inflicted. We have the ability to fix it. We just have to take charge. We are response-able, which means we're able to respond. Your response could be a reaction, but that's not helpful. So we outlined several things, and I can share this with you later if you want to see more of it, but the importance is taking that time, and tomorrow starts tonight by getting a good night's sleep so we're mentally prepared. What questions you have or what's resonated with you and what we talked about? This is your turn to come off mute.
Hey, Joe, this is Larry Peterson. I think your presentation was fantastic. The topic and the items that you hit on were everything we need in our daily lives right now because it's so chaotic. And I love that you gave us solutions, things to do, not just pointed out the problems, but things we need to do. And I can tell you that I thought the grass was going to be greener on the other side of the retirement fence. And I get on the other side of the fence and my to-do list got longer. So I need to personally take some of your things to heart and start doing them. So thank you.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure. What else? Any other questions, concerns, comments? One of the things I'll also say, and I didn't write this, well, it was the first recommendation to get out and move.